Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville and the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're a part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Have you subscribed to the show today? You can find us on Spotify, on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Himalaya, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Gail Girtts. She'll be letting us know about the brand new chapter in her Reba and Katherine series. It's called The Pony Cart. You may have heard that I am the author of a children's book. I happen to think it's a great children's book. It has great in the title anyways. It's called The Great Maratini, and it tells the story of Sam, who is an aspiring and some would say clumsy magician. But he has a lot of grit, and he really believes in himself. And because of that, he is able to learn how to do amazing transformations. But the best part of the story is that along the way, Sam discovers that the greatest transformation of all is transforming feelings of caring into kindness to help another human being. The Great Maratini has been called one of the top 7 books that teaches kids kindness by childrenspublishing.com. It's also received Story Monster approval from Story Inc. magazine. I hope it meets your family's approval. Now, if you're going to be in the Orange County, Southern California area on October 6th, you can come on by to the Reading with Your Kids podcast exhibit booth at the Orange County Children's Book Festival and get that book autographed by me. Yes, I'll be there as part of the largest children's book fair in North America, the Orange County Children's Book Festival. I'll also be performing my magic show, and we'll also probably be telling the story of the Great Maratini on stage. Check it out, October 6th at the Orange County Children's Book Festival, Costa Mesa, California. Admission is free. I'm also really excited to be going out to the Orange County Children's Book Festival because I'm going to have a chance to meet many of the authors that have been here on the podcast. There are many that are going to be exhibiting and having author tables at the book festival. We're also going to have a number of them coming and joining us at the Reading with Your Kids exhibitor booth. And one of those authors is Lisa Caprelli. Lisa Caprelli is the author of Unicorn Jazz. Actually, she's the driving force behind Unicorn Jazz because Unicorn Jazz is so much more than just a picture book. It's a picture book. It's activity books. It's a beautiful plushie. It's music. It's wonderful. And you can meet Lisa Caprelli and have her sign your copy of Unicorn Jazz at the Orange County Children's Book Festival. Now, what I think makes Unicorn Jazz so unique is that Unicorn Jazz is really such a sweetheart. She is kind. And she also had these wonderful curiosities. She's a shy unicorn, and she has a musical note for a tail. It's really wonderful, and I love the fact that Unicorn Jazz, she goes on and she explores a world of imagination. She explores a world full of friendship, and this is what I love most of all. She explores a world of belonging. You belong with us at the Orange County Children's Book Festival. Unicorn Jazz belongs with you and your family on your children's bookshelf. Check it out. Go to Lisa's website, unicornjazz.com. We are real excited. We love it when our friends come back to visit us, and our friend today is back to visit. She's the author of the Reba and Katherine series. The new book is called The Pony Cart. Please welcome back to the show, Gail Girtts. Gail, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me back again.
We're real excited about having you back and learning all about the Pony Cart. Tell us about the story, please.
Oh, it's a great little story. It just came out this past June, and it introduces a friend of mine named Melody, a friend of Reba and Katherine's that lived in their hometown, and she comes out to play, and her dad was actually my dad's boss. So we've got a really special time to go out and play. She'd never come out to the country before. She was a town girl. And so I wanted to give her a ride on our pony cart. So Reba's dad hooks up the pony cart, makes everything safe, and we're riding around in front of the barn and having a great time. And all of a sudden, a wheel falls off. And so the pony takes off running, completely frightened by this banging machine behind him with kids screaming. And my dad shouts, "Jump!" And so Reba and Melody jump out of the pony cart, and Reba lands on one side of the lane and Melody lands on the other. And when Reba runs across to see that her friend is okay, she finds that she's landed right in the middle of a pile of cow manure. She's fine, but she's pretty stinky and pretty upset.
I bet. And I imagine it must have been hard for Reba not to laugh.
Well, no, and Reba knew better than to laugh. But Dad picked her up, carried her to the house, and they washed her off. And they took her to town, back to her mom and dad, and she never came to play again. The funny thing is, Melody still tells that story to her grandchildren. And she was telling me that she loves the story, but when she jumped out, what she could think of was she could see that she was going to land next to a feeding trough, and she was sure that she was going to get her head cut off because she was going to land in that feeding trough. So she was happy to land in the manure because at least she didn't get decapitated.
Well, that's making lemonade, huh? That's
It is.
One of the things we love about the Reba and Katherine series is it is very autobiographical in some ways.
Yes, it is. The stories are completely true. And the great thing is the illustrators done such a good job making the people look like who they are, that people from our community that know our family recognize them. We've used the same houses, some of the furniture, the same names. So they're really personal, but they're also really welcoming for readers who've never visited the Ozarks or ever heard of Munson Hill. They are so special that way.
And one of the things that books does is that it introduces, obviously it introduces kids to this a different part of the world, but also a different time and kind of a different way of looking at life, if you would.
Well, it is. I think, we say this, that life was simpler back then, but you know what? Kids still experience the same things when they read true life stories. They know what it is to be disappointed or to get in trouble or to be afraid. They know what it is to have fun. So the stories are all still about life. It's just in a different maybe setting, but the same things that we experience. And from the stories, children can still learn about forgiveness, or that adults can be fun, or adults can make mistakes, or sometimes even that things can happen, like with a pony cart. You got the best of intentions, but things don't always turn out the way they are, the way they should. And so I think the stories relate in that way, because real life is still real life, no matter whether we lived it in the 50s, the 70s, or the 2000s.
And one of the things, too, I love about the Reba and Katherine stories is that there is that interplay between adults and kids. A lot of kidlets. It's just the kids, and they're kind of facing the world on their own. And
I think yes, I agree with you. I see that a lot. I see a lot of the stories. There's only the child and his computer, the child and his unicorn, the child and whatever is going on, but there's such a need for children to realize that life is multi-generational, that we do have parents, grandparents, cousins, aunts and uncles, and all those people around us are important, even siblings, because Reba and Katherine are siblings, and they're working through life together. It was one person said to me one time, well, why don't you write about Katherine's viewpoint? And I thought to myself, I don't know Katherine's viewpoint in these stories, because you can only really tell how you saw something. It's kind of like the news, one person says one thing and one person says another. I think my sister would probably have maybe a different view, even though she would tell the same story. She would have a different view on it. And I think that's part of people learning that people can have different ideas and experience the same thing, but have different feelings toward it or learn different things from it.
And that's one of the beautiful things about reading with our kids, and it's an important thing when we're reading with our kids, is to help them understand that two people can look at the same thing or experience the same thing, but see something completely differently. Our point of view really kind of, in some ways, dictates how we experience life.
It's very true. And I think that's one of the things about reading with your children, even especially in a series, because it just creates that conversation. Why do you think Reba felt that way? What do you think Katherine felt? Why do you think Grandma felt this way or Melody felt this way? And I think it helps to create that way that we can talk about family friendships, and you can read the stories over and over again and get different angles and different thoughts. If, as the parent, as the reader of the story, you want to not only help them enjoy the fun of the story, but each of the stories have things that you can pull out to help them look at things different way, and teaching them how to analyze and evaluate situations and learn from the mistakes that are in the stories or the funny things that happen in the stories. Why was that funny? Why was that a safe joke, you might say? What would make that maybe inappropriate? Or what if it happened this way? Then what do you think would have happened? And those kind of conversations help us to not only teach our children, but also to learn what our children are thinking as well, because we need to understand how they're viewing life so that we can help to guide them through their own lives.
Boy, oh boy, you mentioned something that it was in the back of my mind. I'm always amazed sometimes, like, kind of something, but you don't acknowledge that it's just the way you live life. And then all of a sudden someone states it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's, yeah. I've been,
yeah.
And I think one of the things that we forget as parents is that as important as it is for us to teach our kids, it's also really, really important that we're always learning about our kids.
That's right. And I think that learning, listen to your children. Mm-hmm. We're always telling them, aren't we? But if we stop to listen, story time is a great time to stop and listen to their reasoning and figure out where they're coming from in their life, what in the story is drawing them, and what maybe needs that they have that will come out in that story, or fears or misunderstandings. And that's a great place for us to explain life. And like, for example, say a child doesn't have grandparents, and like I did, even great grandparents. They might ask, why don't I? Where's my grandparent? Where's my great grandparent? And that's your chance to say, well, we moved away, or they passed away, or whatever explanation there is in your family, but yet to help them link with that, because no matter what has happened in your family situation, your dynamic, everybody has grandparents and great grandparents, and at some point in your life, you get curious about where did I come from, and what's my continuity in my life, and what, they run these DNA tests to find out what we're all made of. It's really good for children to have that idea of I am and who I am, and it helps them to translate themselves into life, and I think empowers them to understand more of other people and be more empathetic with others.
I imagine some people are listening to the show and they might think, oh, yes, if I read this story, if I read that story to my kids, it might inspire them to ask this question. So I don't want to deal with that question, so I'm not going to read this. But there's so many things that a lot of people are really kind of intimidated by. Can you talk a little bit about how, and there's stuff that every one of us are intimidated by or uncomfortable with in certain situations that we really don't want our kids to kind of bring up because it's going to be uncomfortable to talk to them about this or that. But can you talk about why you think it's important just to kind of, to use an old expression, suck it up and to deal with it and to get through it?
Well, I think it is important that we are honest with our children. Reba and Katherine grew up in a time with mom and dad and both sets of grandparents and great-grandparents, and they grew up in an era in the 50s and 60s when that was a very normal thing on the farm and normal for everybody around them. But in Reba and Katherine's life, it's not going to be in the children's stories, but in the real life stories, mom and dad divorce at about 27 years of marriage, and the whole dynamic of the whole family changes. And so, therefore, when I talk about Reba and Katherine to my children and my grandchildren, I want to build that base that there is a happy family, And then they are going to understand, and my children do understand now, that unhappiness did come in the family and there was a change. But my son was talking about this the other day, and the fact that he had sat and talked with his grandfather. And his grandfather was concerned that my son was, you might say, still hurt or angry about the divorce in my parents. Mm-hmm. And he said, Grandpa, he said, when we grew up, Grandma lived in one house and you lived in the other house, and we loved you both, and we didn't have any problem with that. And Grandpa was really happy to hear that. I was really happy to hear that, because that let me know that even though divorce had come in our family and it was not something any of us wanted, it was something that was a fact, and I needed to suck it up and let my children understand that and then teach them how to deal with that. And they came through it loving both grandparents, understanding they lived in two different places, but it hasn't made them angry or bitter. And I think that's one of the real goals of parenting, is helping children deal with difficulties in life without allowing bitterness, anger, and fear to overtake their lives.
Yeah. I agree with you. As important as it is for us to help our kids learn how to read and learn math and inspire them to explore STEM, we are the most important teachers when it comes to them dealing with life and learning how to love and to care and to bounce back from adversities.
That's true. That's very true. As my sister and I were talking just this week, we were talking about what a beautiful life that we had as small children in this area, but how that also really prepared us for the hardships of our adult life, because we had a unity of heart with our family, with even the stories that they read to us, the stories they told us of our family, that, you form that foundation with your children, and that's what gives them the strength to carry on when life does get tumultuous and life does get hard. And for most people, we're usually always face something in our life that's a challenge, and we need that solid foundation to come back to. And I think that family is one of the strongest foundations that we have. And family can be lots of different things for lots of different people, but that's that core place where you're loved, where you're cared for. And it could be a grandparent, it could be a foster person, it could be anybody, but we all need that place to come back to.
Mm-hmm. I know I've mentioned this many times on the podcast, but when I'm doing my educational magic shows, one of the things that I'll do is I'll hand out these little beads, and we don't tell the kids, but we're going to turn these beads into a beautiful necklace. And as I'm handing them out, I ask kids to think about something that they're grateful for. Mm-hmm. Now, when I created this, my then I think he was a sophomore in high school. My son was helping me create this idea and working out how the magic was going to happen. And he told me, he said, you're really taking a risk asking kids what they're grateful for, especially if you ask a kid middle school or high school, because you never, who knows what they're going to come up with. But in all the years that I've been doing this, and I've literally asked thousands of kids what they're grateful for, the overwhelming majority of the kids, and we're talking 99+% of the kids, have said family. I'm thankful for my mom, my dad, my sister, my cousins, my pet. I'm thankful for my life. And in fact, one young guy up in Maine, it was so I literally started crying when he said it. He got up, and I said, and he was kind of at the back of the room, and he was kind of by himself, and I had kind of noticed that. But when I said, "What are you thankful for?" he said, "Jedley, you don't know this about me, but I was a foster kid, and I've never had a family. But yesterday, these two men adopted me, and now for the first time in my life, I have a family."
Yeah. And see, kids need that, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
They need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just let me say, though, with the Reba and Katherine stories, they aren't designed with the idea of solving all these problems. They really are just fun stories. Messy hair is about hair, and Grandpa's gift is about makeup, and the pony cart's about a horse. So all the main subjects are covered in that age group. But there are things there that parents can use to draw out and talk about, especially in Messy Hair Game, where the girls make up that game and Grandma's not pleased with it, and they can talk about forgiveness and apologizing and making things right. But they're really just fun stories. And I think that we need to realize that life needs to be enjoyable for children. Growing up should be fun, really. It should be fun, and it should be funny, and there should be happy things to come back to, good memories, and that's what the Reba and Katherine stories are mostly about.
Yeah. And just getting back to one of the things that you mentioned early on when you're talking about how we can talk to our kids about the series, just asking them the question, why do you think? What do you think? That's so empowering.
It is. It's really great, and you get the wildest answers from kids. One lady wrote to me and said that her little girl loves the Grandpa's Gift story because the Grandpa gets in trouble. She thinks it's hilarious that Grandpa gets in trouble for the choice that he made, and so it's really good for them just to see the dynamics, I think, the relational dynamics, and to realize that there's just a normal back and forth with the families, even when something goes wrong. Dad just scoops Melody up out of the cow manure and cleans her up. We don't have to have a great big fit about it. We just fix the problem and we go on.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you is you have the Reba and Katherine series available in different languages, and that's wonderful. And, of course, it's available in English, and it's also available in Spanish, which doesn't surprise me. But you also have it available in Welsh.
I know.
And that's a language you don't see many stories translated into.
You don't, but I have a friend that lives in England, a Welsh friend, and her little daughter just fell in love with it. And because she goes to a Welsh-speaking school, she just translated the story. And so we went ahead and put it out and put English subtitles. And I'm going to be reading it in one of the Welsh schools this September. And the schools are looking into it because it's got both languages there to use it for a teaching tool. I've even got a language school in Spain that got hold of me about using the Spanish one for their classes to teach. But also, I've got a young lady that's now translated into Norwegian. Wow. So we're working on getting that in by the end of the year. So it's just kind of, I think that's because the stories, I think, relate so well. They just are, happy stories, and they fall in love with them, and so they translate them. And so we're going to continue with at least the Spanish. Of course, the other two stories are out with the editors right now. And the Welsh, Grandpa's Gift, we'll work on that probably this coming year and get it out too. So it's kind of fun.
That's fantastic. Now, do you speak Welsh, or are you able to read in Welsh?
No, I speak English and Ozarkian.
Well, I'm not even going to ask. I'm not even going to ask how do you translate Ozarkian, but
I try to write in English so y'all can understand me.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, where can folks connect with Gail Girtts online?
Well, I have a Facebook page at Gail Girtts, and the stories are under True Story Keepsake, which is what they're under. But if you Google my name, Gail Girtts, in Amazon or even on just Google, all the stories will come up, and all the links to me will come up now.
That's fantastic. Well, we've had a fantastic time speaking with the author of Reba and Katherine, the Pony Cart, the latest in the Reba and Katherine series, Gail Girtts. Gail, I am so happy that we had this chance to visit with you again. Will you please come back and let us know when there's a new story in the series available?
I certainly will. We're looking at one next year, either another horse story or maybe a Christmas story. So that's kind of our goal.
We've been speaking to Gail Girtts today. Gail, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are very excited to welcome back Sherry Fink. Sherry's going to be celebrating the publication of her brand new children's book, The Little Dragon. Don't miss this episode of the show. If you are the author of a great children's book, we would love to help you tell the world all about it being a guest. It's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands and thousands of people about your fantastic children's book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button, let us know about your great book. We will let you know the next easy steps. It really is easy. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Gail Girtts. Be sure to check out Reba and Katherine and the latest chapter in the series, The Pony Cart. I also want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. Be sure to check out her blog at readingwithyourkids.com and let us know what you think about the newly renovated website. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support that she gives me. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for telling the world all about the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you do, a really great way to tell the world about the podcast is by leaving a review, hopefully a 5-star review, over at Apple Podcasts or wherever you download your podcast from. I also want to thank you for making the world a better place, and you really do that when you read with your kids. We'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.